underway. You can just tell that this is going to get worse before it gets any better right now with these live pictures. It seems like the number of students perhaps are outnumbered by the number of police officers, or maybe it's one-on-one. There are a lot of LAPD officers on USC tonight. This is all part of the Gaza solidarity that we've seen play out across college campuses. Lots of chants that we've heard throughout the day. Free Palestine, one of them notably. And those saying, we will not stop, we will not go. In other words, you can arrest us. So we're seeing more of that pushing and shoving. Yep. Ed, go ahead.
Yeah, there they go. They're moving in, just trying to clear the protesters off the main entrance here. Shoving, pushing. Some of the protesters throwing liquid. One of the protesters, a lady being arrested, taken away by LAPD right now. She might have been one who was throwing some liquid at some of the officers who moved in. But yeah, there's stuff flying, whether it's liquid, whether it's some bottles of liquid, as the protesters throw they can at the officers, but I've seen at least one taken away by officers, presumably under arrest. But the officers, the main core, moved, and they really have cleared that main area, the main stairway area. The center of the park itself gives you a good idea that they have control. LAPD does, but on both sides, the protesters, they scrambled initially, but now we're recircling around. Still objects flying through the air, but LAPD holding their ground and saying they will make more arrests if they have to.
Well, LAPD police, they don't like things being thrown at them, liquids, don't know what it is. That's obviously a game changer. Matthew, do you want us to come to you? Do you want to give us a feel for what you're saying?
Ed is right there, and we're right here.
Matthew, go ahead.
Yeah, so we're right next to where Ed is, and we saw that mad rush of protesters as police were closing in, and there was some skirmishing, and now this is the main set of been really following all afternoon that have been walking arms in the center of this park, some of them sitting, some of them standing, and police have them surrounded. And really the focus much of the day has been on this park, and USC has basically said you can't camp here like we've seen in other parts of the country. A lot of these people are not students, so they're under arrest for being on private property and doing this. But that's what led to where we are right now, and you can see police prepared to move in on exactly where we are, but there's just a ton of people, and you can tell that more police are coming in as well.
Yeah, this picture here, dozens more of those officers just armed and ready to go. They're in their riot gear. We just saw a gentleman go into the frame. Sign of, it said Gaza, G-A-Z-A. You see the A lying on the ground now. Officers moving in from this live picture here, so perhaps we can see what, okay, yeah. They're sort of getting a sense of the crowd. Are they going to be moving out? Will those officers be moving in?
Here come police. Looks like they're moving those signs, and you can tell, look, they've got zip ties. They're ready to arrest a lot of people. And they are preparing to go in right now. They've got their batons out.
And are they going towards the crowd seated with their arms locked?
Yes. So the crowd with the arms locked is right, probably about 30 feet away right now. These protesters are locking arms. And this could be a little more peaceful than the arrest that we were just looking at with Ed, because it seems like these people are prepared to be arrested.
When you say those that are more of an organized effort than those in the crowd that are encountering police, you say?
Exactly, yeah. I mean, these demonstrators that are with us right now are prepared to be arrested any minute, and you can, this person's recording. I mean, they're ready to be arrested, arms up, and just locking arms right now with police ready to make these arrests. And they gave them a warning now about an hour ago. They gave a 10-minute warning, and it's been about an hour now. And we're expecting this any second.
Yeah, and you know, we got word from the university's provost, Andrew Guzman, earlier, and he said in a statement today that many of these participants do not appear to be affiliated with USC. We've seen that. You've seen that even on the ground. In other words, they aren't students. Many of them aren't. It's hard to, as you said, by your wager or your estimate earlier, that about half were students, others were not, and Either way, they have been given that dispersal about an hour ago, and many have not left. In fact, it seems like it's only gotten worse. More people have descended upon Alumni Park here at USC. And we have Matthew Seedorf, we have Ed Lascos on the ground, LAPD officers in the frame right now, and it looks like they're getting into formation. And let's go to Ed Lascos. Ed, what is your picture showing us?
Ed Lascos, can you hear us?
Can you guys take us real quick?
All right. Matthew, did you want us to go to you now?
Yeah, so it looks like police are trying to get the media out. So it seems like this is going to be happening pretty quickly. We want to walk this direction. Police basically just gave us the warning that they're going to be moving in. So we have to get on the other side of this police line before they move in. Here, as we can watch, hopefully from here, a safe place with these demonstrators that are willing to get arrested inside. So basically, they were saying that everyone inside this park will be arrested, and those people inside are prepared to be arrested. See, police are going to be moving in here any second.
So we'll continue to watch that, a really tense situation. So you and the crew were given a warning to move out so that officers could move in, and those who were locked with locked arms will be under arrest momentarily. Yeah, that officer saying, get out of our way. So we're walking with you, Matthew. We have Ed Lascos on the ground, too. Does your picture show a similar scene, Ed?
Well, Marla, we're on the other side of the park, away from the stairs, the center of the park, if you will. This is a skirmish line that just moved over here. It's protecting the flank, the backside of those officers that are ready to make the arrest that Matthew was just showing us, him and James, in that area. So this skirmish line that's protecting the backside of the officers as they make the arrest, because you still have a lot of protesters on the other side still circling around the LAPD. They have their cell phones out, their cameras out. We've seen things flowing through the air. Flowing might be the accurate word, some type of liquid either thrown from bottles or the entire bottle thrown at the officers. Saw a couple of people taken away by officers, put in the ziplock. So in a sense, they have been placed under arrest, certainly been detained. But this area is a bit calm right now as LAPD is in a sense moving around their deployment, circling around, covering their flank, their backside. Main group of officers in that tactical line that Matthew was showing us. They're getting ready right now to make arrest, as I can even hear them from across the park, still continuing with their chants, pro-Palestinian chants, saying they will not back down. They continue, but still no mass arrest here, as LAPD still mobilizing. As one of the officers was saying, we don't want this, and we don't want anyone to get hurt. And I did see, to their credit, there was one area where some of the presumably the people inside, I'm not sure if they were trying to get out, to get away from the skirmish lines, and one of the officers directed them that way, said, go that way, you'll be safe, just get out of here, leave the park area. And that group of 4 or 5 folks, some men and women, ran out. So I'm not sure if they were part of the protest. LAPD is trying to move the crowd around, and perhaps even trying to ID them, saying if you're not here for the protest, if you're just in the wrong place at the wrong time, out, you will not be arrested. But certainly they're targeting the protesters, who at this point arms are locked. They're burning sage and incense here, and the officers moving again, moving back, tightening their lines as the crowd kind of moves in just a little tighter on them.
Well, you have those who are definitely making that statement with their arms crossed there in solidarity with the protests, the pro-Palestinians protesters there. We have a statement from CARE, which is an organization we often hear from, which is the Council on American Islamic Relations. They are condemning what they call USC's violent crackdown on student protesters. They are, quote, demanding university respect students' speech. We don't know that all of these people are students. There was a call out for bodies to show up today to protest at USC. They came early at 4:30 a.m. with tents in place. And now you have those people behind those LAPD officers who are definitely making a statement about war with Israel and Hamas and the and thousands who've died, the Palestinians who've died. That is their statement right there, calling for an end to this war and an end to the university's involvement in financing tied to Israel. So again, we've watched these protests play out across different college campuses. This is not a surprise that it is now here in Southern California, and USC obviously a school with a big statement and its own other issues regarding this conflict, and their valedictorian who is not going to be speaking at graduation. No speakers at graduation, so they've got another issue that's put USC forefront of the news.
Yeah, that has really made this the ground zero, if you will, of our double pictures here. Those demonstrators locking arms, and you can see the lines of the LAPD officers. Matthew Seedorf, you said moments ago you were told to really just get out of the way so that LAPD could move in. It looks like they have not done that just yet.
That's exactly right. Yeah, they basically told us to leave away, and essentially if we were in that circle too, we could possibly be arrested. So we stepped out so we could watch, and you can see it looks like a couple of police, they're still setting up. It seems like they're trying to get in place with they want this to go as smoothly as possible. So they have it surrounded, and it just looks like they're waiting to move in and possibly move in quickly, as we just heard a whistle. So there's also an LAPD helicopter flying above and giving officers a look from the sky, possibly to help organize this. Okay, well, let's bring into our coverage Tim Lynn, a former Orange County Sheriff Deputy and also current reserve officer. Tim, I know that you are watching our coverage as well. What are you seeing, and what do you make of this from a law enforcement perspective?
Well, you're set up in a situation here. We have skirmish lines set up. They have a tactical plan arranged to where the protesters who are there for the purpose of getting arrested, and that's what that group is in the center more than likely. But the one thing they're not going to do is rush in on this crowd and try to take them into custody very quickly. They'll go in very systematically with different teams and remove them one by one. And of course, they'll have some type of transportation available for them to take them in and secure them in of some sort in the area so they can bring them out systematically. Then you have arrest teams to do that. Then you have another perimeter that are protecting the arrest team, and outside of that, you have another perimeter to looky-loos away. And what they probably already have done is given the order to disperse. And the one thing about USC campus, it's private property, so there's no right to be there. Once the campus decides to shut down, as they did earlier today, limiting access, once they give you the order to leave, then you now are subject to arrest due to trespass, unlike with a state facility or a open property to where open city area. So right now what they're doing, the commands are putting together a plan to be able to get in there and peacefully take these folks into custody. That's what they're there for, to make the statement, to be arrested, and then transported away. And eventually what will happen is they'll do a complete clearing movement to clean everybody off the campus and out of the quad, out of that park area, to then take control of the campus and keep people who do not have business on that campus off, due to the fact that it is, like I said, private property, and they have shut down the perimeter of that campus. One thing they're there at the invitation of the USC police. They are a private police organization or security service that handles USC and the surrounding properties. But right now it's over their ability to handle, so that's why they called in LAPD.
And we should note that these demonstrations camp in, where they've been setting up tents on these campuses. That happened here at USC as well, 4:30 in the morning. We think of USC having their own public safety department. How many officers, give or take, do you think they have? And obviously they would need a large department like the LAPD.
Well, they'd probably have somewhere just under 100, if I remember right, from working up in that area. But right now they are well overwhelmed, unable to handle it. It's unlike the USC LA campus, which is part of a 9-campus system, the UC Police Department, which can pull officers from 8 other campuses to come in when they have protests or operations on each campus. USC is on their own. They have their own department, and it's probably just under 100 security officers that are there. I don't believe they are sworn police officers. They're just they're security services, campus. And like I said, that's why you see such a large presence of LAPD, because they've asked for help to come in. And the group right now, like I said, it looks like your normal protest or your normal sit-in to where people over an area. They will then lock arms and then try to hold the police back. And then their next thing is to. And so with the rocks and bottles, though, you have the agitators. Those are for, because they're normally always behind the crowd, and where they'll throw things over the top of the crowd in that skirmish line. And that's why you see them wearing those helmets and face shields, because having been on skirmish lines myself down with the Huntington Beach Police Department on some of the 4th of July situations we had down here, bottles and everything come flying at you from behind the crowd, and you don't see them until they're real short, real close to hitting you. So they have undercover officers in the crowd watching for that, and then they'll make their move on those folks, because you don't have to worry too much about the folks that are yelling at you at the front of the line. It's the agitators in the back of the line that are going to do the most damage to the officers and injure the officers.
And reminded that each of these officers have their own families to go home, who are probably watching this coverage as well, with their own concern for the safety of their loved ones. Marla?
Moving around, deploying some more.
Go ahead, Ed.
Officers on the other side. No, we just see that on the other side, they are deploying some more LAPD officers. They're trying to keep the crowd of protesters on this side of the skirmish line. In the center of the skirmish line is the circle of all the protesters. This is the skirmish line, and they're trying to keep the crowd back, moving in as they try to make some arrests. Again, the arrests haven't started here yet, but they are on the loudspeakers themselves, telling people to disperse, to move away. But again, the of doing that, and the skirmish line is set up at this point just crowd from surging in for protection. So you see a lot of officers running around, but at this point just redeploying to another side, where if they're on this side, the protesters move around the far side. So it's pretty much the LAPD officers moving around to where the protesters are themselves.
All right, Ed, well, as we look at those ground pictures, we do have another shot from Skyfox, where another sort of demonstration has started outside USC campus. This is at the intersection of Hoover, and you can see those signs. Some of them say ceasefire, USC divest. I can't, the sun's blocking it. Perhaps genocide, divest. We've seen a lot of those signs, divest and the genocide. So they're basically saying that the U.S. is backing this genocide that's underway in Gaza. Of course, saw the loss of life of 1,200 initially at the Nova Music Festival. And thousands of Palestinians have died since October the 7th. And this new funding was, in fact, announced from the U.S. to Israel and Ukraine. That should be noted as well. So now we have Skyfox above the situation at Hoover and Johnson, or pardon me, Hoover and Jefferson. Traffic right there in this of that intersection, and then at Alumni Park, the ground camera with the skirmish lines set up there, skirmish lines of LAPD officers, dozens of them. You can see their zip ties. They're in their riot gear. So far, Christine, I've just seen one being taken away in the zip tied from our angle, but that could certainly, there could be more, just that hasn't happened in front of our cameras.
And the concern is people throwing bottles or liquids on or at these officers as well. One reason perhaps for that protest in the streets is USC did close off their campus around 1:30 this afternoon. Anybody who wasn't already inside for their protest, which started at 4:30 this morning, inside once those gates were closed. If you've never been to USC, it is a large campus with a big iron gate that goes, or fencing that goes all around the campus. It is a campus that is unlike, I don't know if I've ever seen a campus like that. I know my university, which was Arizona State, wide open. Anybody could come from any direction. Not so here at USC. They can close things off. Again, this is private property. Protests started at 4:30 this morning. I'm looking at a sign here that I've seen, which has the demands of these to end war profiteering and, quote, investment in general. They want to end the silence on the, quote, Palestinian genocide. They want, quote, no policing on. Want to stop the displacement of Palestinians. They want to protect. You have those there who are willing to be arrested. And then you have those there that are perhaps behind now this skirmish line. I'm wondering if we can bring in one of our reporters, Matthew Seedorf. Can you tell us, is this line of officers just around the protesters now who are locking their arms in solidarity, obviously being willing to be arrested? And is this just the crowd behind them? Less of a concern, perhaps?
Yes. Yeah. Seen on this crowd in the center of Alumni Park that is locking arms. You can see beyond them that there are maybe looky-loos. That's where the main skirmish was earlier. But now police are really focusing on this circle. And as you said, a lot of them prepared to be arrested. We see one woman in the center there wearing a helmet. So she was prepared for this. And yeah, police have been moving closer ever so slightly, and also telling the media to push back. And if you want to flip around, James, just a little bit, there is now police tape up behind us. So we've got police tape and some looky-loos on the other side of this park, and then in the middle here we have that demonstration of protesters locking arms and prepared to be arrested with police ready to move in.
And as we look at the multiple pictures here from above and on the ground, a little bit of the statement from the Jewish Federation of Los Angeles that issued this not long ago, saying the protests that are taking place on campuses around the country are alarming. Anti-Semitism, hate, and intolerance towards Jewish students has on any campus. Of course, there's the other side of it, CARE, which condemns USC's violent crackdown on student protesters, demanding that the university respect students' rights to. So there's both sides of this very contentious debate underway on college campuses across the country. Go ahead, Christine.
Yeah, reminded Marla of the sign of the times. We are now spring, heading into summer. The initial invasion into Israel by Hamas was October 7th. 1,200 Israelis and other nationals were killed in Israel, according to Israeli authorities. 250 people taken hostage. You can't forget those visuals. Israel saying about 100 hostages still being held. And then, of course, we have the 4,000 Palestinians who have died, according to the Palestinians. Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to listen. Police just moved closer. Looks like a combination of campus police and city police, and it's hard to hear them, but it sounds like they're telling them basically that this is your last chance. You can't be here. And you can see police moving closer, and then the police in front of us are basically keeping this safe from other protesters showing up from behind now.
It would make sense that it would be a USC officer perhaps giving that statement to those protesters there, letting them know that they would be arrested. This is on the USC. LAPD backing up the USC law enforcement officers there, so that would make sense that perhaps they would have command and control of that part of the statement there as we continue to watch this.
Do we Tim Lynn with us? I have a quick question for him. So, and let me apologize. Off the top, I introduced you as former Orange County Sheriff's Deputy. You're Huntington Beach police officer formerly. Is that right, sir?
Yes, that's right. I've retired from Huntington Beach Police Department as well.
Okay, yes. So I apologize for that. My question to you is, you know, we've seen this dispersal announcement come well over an hour ago. There's been multiple warnings of these to them to move, to leave. That hasn't happened. So what is the strategy of law enforcement? Oh, it looks like, well, here, I guess here's my answer, Tim.
Moving it.
Yeah, they don't rush on something like this. Time is on their side, and they have to have all the pieces in place as far as I was explaining, the different skirmish lines, the arrest teams. You saw the USC security agents go in and make the announcement, the ones with the orange or yellow patches on, and then the LAPD officers have the clean shoulders, except for the Metro teams, and they give the order, and then they will go in and make those arrests. Like I said, they have to make sure that they have some place to take these folks. So once they take them into custody, more than likely they'll have buses waiting in the background and be able to take them there, put them in the bus, then take them off to some detention facility.
It looks like that we have the first person from that crowd offering himself up as the first arrest. There you have that right there. He put his hands up and then went to his knees there as the LAPD moved in to make that first arrest of the crowd of demonstrators who have their arms linked there in solidarity there, willing to be arrested to make that very strong statement. And so you have the first one now. You mentioned time is on the side of law enforcement there because they're with their arms linked. And there we have a second person there now in those zip ties.
Right. They go in one by one, take them out. There's no rush to go after the crowd is a big herd, because you have problems when you do that. So you have the arrest team go in, pull them out one, move them off. They have some place to take them, and officers that are protecting those squads going out. So right now it's just going to be a real systematic operation. And I'm going to have to correct something I said earlier. I checked the USC website, and they have 300 staff members on that USC security police department. Not sure how many of the 300 are uniformed, but they do have a sizable police force there. But as you see, they took them on going up and telling them for the last time to move, and then gave the directions to start taking people into custody. And all these folks that are up there arresting, putting the zip ties on, those are LAPD and being backed up by the USC. So right now they're being taken away for a multitude of charges, either trespassing or failure to disperse, because on a failure to disperse, where they have to give you an announcement, they have to give you ample time to get off the campus or get out of the area that they want you out of. They tell you what the direction of escape is. They'll tell you which way to go, to leave. You made the comment to where Ed was saying one person, and he's telling them, go that direction, you'll be fine. And that's what you do. You give them an the area, and after you make multiple announcements, then finally the order comes down to where you're going to be arrested at this point. And now you see them bringing them back into a secure area. The officer who's going to handle all the paperwork, identifying these folks, to getting them into the transports, and then off to whatever detention facilities they've arranged for these folks to go to.
Yeah, I mean, that was an interesting, was sort of the triage, if you will, the booking process laid out, where you're seeing one by one, they're going up. Obviously, they're being entered into the system, and I suppose will be put into the van. You see the doors open, but I'm really struck by, Tim, how orderly this is.
That's the best way to do this. These folks are there to be arrested. That's their goal. They came in, occupied the area. The police gave their announcements. They made their point. Now, part of their protest, part of their action is to be arrested and then taken away. Unfortunately, during the 2020 uprisings that we had throughout Los Angeles, there was too many times where the police just came in, dispersed the crowd, and just kind of shoved them down the street and let them go. And then, an hour later, they reconstituted someplace else. Go in, get them contained again, and then say, please leave the area or we will arrest you. And then they let them go again. And that process continued on for days. So it's a good thing now that we're seeing. And the one thing I think what makes this a little bit different than handling it in the downtown area, private campus with private property rights, and they've been given their ample opportunity to leave. So now they're going through that very systematic arrest procedures to where they just go in, contact them, put them in zip ties, take them to the booking area, and then move them off, because the last thing you want to do is get into a situation where they're going to start pushing forward to a big crowd, then have that crowd start having the agitators attack the officers in a big hurry, and officers and people get caught up in that and end up getting hurt.
Yeah, well, we're seeing one by one the systematic and orderly arrest of these demonstrators. Ed Lascos, I know you're on the ground there as well. What are you seeing?
And Marla, that's a very good way of explaining it. Systematic arrest, one by one. They back up, place their hands voluntarily behind their back, zip tied, and they're taken away. Here's another one who's coming back, following directions. All this, you know, I took note maybe about 15 minutes ago. Organizers of this, if you will, and they were talking to some of the commanders here on the ground, probably working out the procedure, as saying, if we do this, if you do it in this fashion, we'll make the arrest. There's not going to be any violence. It will be orderly, if you we're seeing. So it's in a sense been planned out this way. As the protesters say, they weren't leaving. They were arrested, and we see that, but they're not fighting in a sense to be taken away. Voluntarily giving themselves up, as one said, yelling at me, making a statement. You can hear some of the officers, everybody back up, and that's what we've been hearing here as the skirmish lines continue to keep the outer crowd away. You've got a lot of protesters here wearing their flags, wearing their signs, they're also with their cell phones trying to get video pictures of this, and the skirmish lines are pushing everybody back, protecting that center in there where you've got the circle, arms locked of the protesters, and then the arresting squad that you're left with. They're basically taking each protester away one by one as they voluntarily give themselves up. And I think here's another one with his white scarf being taken away. I think the count now might be up to about a dozen or so who've been marched off. They're being taken off campus over to Vermont, and last I saw, around 36th place, there are several vans, paddy wagons we used to call them, and they will be taken off and booked there as of trespassing, is what the lieutenant from LAPD was telling us a little while ago. That's the charge they're facing if they refuse to leave. Several did not, and now they're under arrest.
Well, Ed, fair to say that they are raising awareness about a very concerned for our planet during these times. You can see the crowd of protesters there in this statement to be arrested there. They are sitting in unison there with their arms locked, protesting the Hamas war and the many deaths on the side of the Palestinians, and wanting the universities to not be involved with funding any kind of war efforts, so to speak. And I'm just wondering what it feels like to be there on the ground, the sights, the sounds. What is it like to be there on the ground?
Well, it's a very tense situation, and you don't know what could erupt at any time, what could spark at any time, because tensions are high, feelings are high here. LAPD, good job trying to calm everybody down as much as they can. Of course, when you see a tactical squad move in like that, you get jumpy right off the bat. They're heavily armed. They are, on their faces, you can see they're not here to fool around. So that can get people jumpy, but it has been, for the most part, somewhat calm. There's been a little pushing and shoving when the LAPD first moved in. But I remember, and you do too, I'm sure, Christine and Marla, the Occupy movement down at City Hall, the park outside City Hall, and how nasty that got. And when LAPD moved in then, it was really violent. Rocks and projectiles flying through the air, and it was a horrible scene, very violent. This one, by contrast, certainly not that way. And perhaps it's because the protesters, as I've been hearing from some of their de facto leaders, are saying it's really about making a statement here. We're willing to be arrested. We want to have video taken of us being arrested to drive home our point. We're not here, in a sense, to fight the police. And I think that's what we're seeing. It's compared to the comparison I was making to the Occupy movement. That was a nasty, a violent uprising. Remember that scene? It was a horrible scene. Yeah. This is nothing like it. So in terms of the protests we've seen, this one could certainly get out of hand. It has not yet.
Yeah, and that it should be noted, and it is really a relief, because earlier it was really tense when we were seeing people starting to throw water bottles. That's what we saw on our air, and sort of the back and forth pushing between some officers and the demonstrators. And as I'm saying that, Skyfox above, and you're seeing sort of more of that tense situation. One person there clapping, plenty of phones out. Of course, everything is being recorded these days. And that skirmish line with those officers in the riot gear, their batons, their zips. They are ready, and it looks like those demonstrators are too. They are determined. We've seen this all afternoon. We've been in this continuous breaking news coverage for well over an hour now, when LAPD on into the Alumni Park on the campus of USC, and now we're seeing one by one still these orderly and systematic arrests. And there's even, Christine, we saw that earlier, that booking area where each arrestee is being taken and booked, and then presumably will be
Processed.
Yeah, right there.
You know, and also just giving perspective here from the Occupy movement, and that was something we saw across the nation as well. Not only a different matter, you're also here at an enclosed property. You're at a private university that is gated. If somebody were to try to commit an act of, say, violence toward an officer, they'd be arrested pretty darn quickly. Not really a lot of places you can run to when you are in a gated location with so many officers there, making that very heavy visual presence. And there you see that aerial shot there as each one who is arrested is taken over, as you said, Marla, to that booking area. And very peaceful here, but you think of the numbers when we think of the other college campuses that have seen 60 arrests and 100 arrests. You're probably going to see something like that as well here, because that's a dedicated group there in that circle making that statement, willing to be arrested for this cause.
Yeah, I referred to it sort of earlier as ground zero of this movement, because this became more of an issue in the last couple of weeks when USC made to rescind the invitation of the Muslim valedictorian to speak, really deeming her pro-Palestinian, and that set off some demonstrations, and then it seemed to only get worse once USC said, we're not going to let her speak, and we're not going to let anyone speak. And so there will be a ceremony without speakers. More to come on that, and we've been following this as we have at Columbia University in New York City. Of course, we had that earlier in our coverage tonight. We've seen that at other campuses, and now it's spilled over to USC, where this started off as a really small demonstration really early this morning, and here we are beyond 12 hours into it. It's only grown, and now we're seeing the one single file, if you will, arrests underway by LAPD.
You can't help but be reminded of the times that we are living in. What's happening around the world here, with there being war in the area of Israel and for the Palestinians as well. You can't help but feel the heartbreak for the state that we're in. That all began on October 7th. As we head into summer, the war is still raging on there. There is fighting in a region, and people are dying, and there's hunger, and hostages are still being held, and it is really a very painful time on our planet right now. And you have the protesters here, and this is the one perhaps that was wearing the helmet. We had talked about Matthew Seedorf on the ground there, saying there's a woman with a helmet on. Perhaps this is her, and making some statements there to either the officers or in general there as she's being led away.
Let's bring in police specialist Tim Lynn. Tim, given the number of demonstrators that are out there, and sure, there are plenty of LAPD officers, if they're going to do this and that stays in this fashion, systematic and orderly, this is going to take a long time. Can you estimate how long this would take?
I could not do that, because it all depends on what happens while they're going through this operation. What that's on the outskirts, do they start causing problems? Is there a plan by the group? You know, let them get so far, and then all of a sudden you'll get the uprising on the outside, which will stop the arrest. They'll go back to protection and kind of deal with the problem in the area. So, you know, it's hard to put a number on this. They're going to take it as long as they need to have it, one by one, slowly coming out, because the police officers there do not want to instigate with this crowd. They know that those protesters in the center just want to be arrested. What they want to do is incite some agitator in that crowd you're looking at there on the bottom of the Skyfox shot. Those are the ones they're worried about, because that spark could go off in that crowd, and you have a completely situation. It'll get very dynamic in a big hurry, and then officers are going to go into protection mode and be able to start going after the folks who are causing all the problem. Like I said, they have undercover officers in that crowd, I can guarantee you that, who are keeping an eye on the agitators, and hopefully they'll be able to take those folks out very quickly to kind of quell it. Because on a situation like this, we have, you know, let's say you have 1,000 protesters there, 1,000 people, you probably only have 100 who are really causing the problems. The rest of of them, as soon as things starts happening, they're going to leave the area. They're going to get out of there as quickly as possible. They don't want to have any part of that because that's not what they came there. They came there more as a looky-loo, more as just want to be part of the crew. And when you get into a crowd, you get that anonymity to where you can just stay in the crowd and be part of it without the consequences from that. But the way this is set up right now, it looks to me to be you have a core group who are in the center of that quad who are there to be arrested. That is their statement. The ones on the outside are just, like I said, the agitators, the ones they have to look at and watch out for. So LAPD is USC campus police are not going to rush this. They're going to stay with their plan and try to run this thing smoothly as they can, but not rush anything. So a time limit, and it's just costing the citizens of Los Angeles a lot of money to have all these officers there on USC to handle this, as well as I'm sure the department, LAPD, has gone on TAC alert, which means that officers are having to stay on duty, and officers who are coming in are going to be on 12 on, 12 off shifts at this point until they get this situation under control.
You know, USC has put out an official statement on its social media platforms letting everyone know that LAPD is center of the campus, and if you are anywhere in the center, please leave. This is according to USC on their social media accounts. They've also campus has been closed as a result of significant activity at the center of campus. Students will have access through pedestrian gates with their USC IDs. Everyone who is on campus will be able to, so they'll be checking IDs. But for now, our eyes are at the center of campus where all this activity is.
Yeah, Tim, I'm going to ask you one final question here, and then we're going to bring in Dennis Zine, who also is with law enforcement and can give us perspective as well. But my question for you, Tim, is as you see this, and you've covered many protests before and demonstrations before, is it a different kind of crowd when you talk about the agitators, given that it's an enclosed campus that's a little bit harder to hide if you've got an campus with officers perhaps in many areas to watch somebody who's going to be an agitator and try to run and hide?
Well, it just because it's closed on the perimeter doesn't mean there's not a multitude of places to hide and to come out from, make your little attack and then run back in. So I'm sure the USC officers are watching those areas because they're familiar with the campus, and the officers who work that division down there, Southwest, are well aware of it too. But yeah, just the closed part is just keeping more people from coming in. They're able to secure the campus a little easier because they have physical barriers. But in a situation like this, like I said, it doesn't take much to set something like this off. And one thing I would suggest to the USC campus folks, whether they do it or not, is make an announcement that if you're arrested, that college administrative activity will happen to where you could possibly be expelled from the campus. A lot of the folks who are there don't want that ever to happen. So I believe if they start making that type of announcement or make that warning, that the ones who really aren't involved in this but just there, you can thin the crowd out pretty well by warning about administrative actions against the students.
All right, Tim, thank you so much. You know, we just saw that we're now seeing this woman away as she's arrested, but the one right before that was the one who actually spoke to Matthew Seedorf and said that he was a graduate student of USC, and he was there and willing to be arrested, and he has now been officially arrested. We want to take you to outside, sort of the spillover, if you will. This is photographer on the ground in his live picture. This is at the intersection of Hoover and Jefferson. We had seen this from our Skyfox shot earlier. It looks like it's since grown. So this is the spillover of the demonstration on USC campus. This intersection, plenty of signs out. Fire, free Palestine. Los Angeles stands with Palestine. That's the big one in the back. So that is the outside. The demonstrations are getting bigger outside. Back to the middle of campus on Alumni Park there in the quad. Matthew Seedorf, what are you seeing?
Yeah, right now the demonstrators have been chanting, "Let them go," and we've been seeing these demonstrators getting arrested and rather, smoothly. I'm actually pretty shocked at how smooth this is going for police. Reports earlier, some scanner traffic when that initial push was going, that there was protesters throwing rocks and bottles, but we're definitely not seeing that right now. These demonstrators are basically just getting called out and then told to put their hands behind their back like we're seeing right now, and then the police come in and put the zip ties on them and walk them off to the van parked just on the other side of the block here. I would estimate we've seen probably 30, 40 arrests so far, and again, we're hearing that crowd chanting, "Let them go," in the middle of Alumni Park right now.
And so the crowd, though, so we're watching the arrests here, which, as we've all described them, as very peaceful, and that crowd behind the skirmish line there, the crowd standing. Have you found that to also seem fairly peaceful?
Yeah, at this moment it definitely is. As I was saying, they're just chanting "Let them go." I think earlier they were chanting "This is about peace." So those are kind of the overall messages right now as these demonstrators get carted off to the van. But what I'm interested to see is, you see these demonstrators locking arms standing. What will happen with the ones sitting? Because it seems like they're going to be less willing to stand and go off with police. Who knows? I think it seems like this circle is prepared to be arrested. So we'll see what happens with the circle, and it is getting smaller once it closes in.
Yeah, they've been warned. You've got some confirmation from many of them. Matthew, that yes, we are here and we will be arrested and we are willing to be arrested, and we've seen that unfold. You counted about 30 or 40 so far. There is a whole booking process that's underway nearby where that's been orderly as well. I referred to it sort of as a relief because earlier, Christine, these live pictures that we were seeing, they were so incredible. Matthew, go ahead.
Yeah, so you can see the point where the police are walking those demonstrators arrested over to that white van on the other side of the police tape. And there's two vans right there now, maybe possibly more, but at least two in our sight. So that's where they're being walked to. We can see one protester right now on the other side of the tape. With the zip ties being carted off right now to the van, it looks like police are also holding his backpack for him as he's being walked away, getting arrested right now.
We are watching to the right of your screen even more LAPD officers moving in here. Our photographer Gino Arias providing this shot for us. This is not re-rack video. This is more officers moving in. And speaking of police, we want to bring in Dennis Zine, who spent many years with the LAPD, is now a reserve officer and also a city councilman. Dennis, as you're watching this protest play out and these arrests, what do you make of everything?
This reminds me of the Vietnam War demonstrations. I've been on LAPD for 55 years, and I've been through this for many, many years. This just reminds me of what it was in the past. These people are sending a message. They're willing to be arrested. They're willing to go through the process, and the officers are doing what they need to do as been directed by the. But let me emphasize to the people of Los Angeles, all these officers are assigned to field duty. A vast majority, I would say, are assigned to field duty. So when you call 911 tonight and you don't get a police car there for a while, these were the officers that are here. These officers come throughout the city of LA, all 21 divisions, to muster up these resources. They don't just store them away and say, we come out for a demonstration. These are working police officers that would normally be handling radio calls and working, and they're on 12 hours. So what the public needs to recognize, if you call 911, you need a police officer now, there's going to be an extensive delay because they've all been deployed to this particular demonstrations taking place at SC. So from the valley, from the west, from the east, from the south, they're mustered up from all bureaus, and that's the situation that they need to do. They need sufficient resources, as we see the camera now, where they're marching in. They've already got officers deployed. As Tim has said earlier, they do have undercover officers to make sure it's peaceful. So far, everything's been peaceful. These folks that are being arrested are sending a message because of the war that's taken place. They want to be arrested. They'll go through the criminal justice process. But the bottom line is, all these officers would be assigned to field duty, handling calls for service in the city of Los Angeles. People forget that. They somehow think that we just bring them out of, magically they appear. This takes a lot of training, a lot of practice, and a lot of personnel resources that they're deploying, including the air unit operation and the metro unit. So I wouldn't be surprised if they brought in the mounted unit also.
Well, I mean, to that point, sergeants out there as well. Are you surprised that, is this typical protocol that you just you run the whole gamut of the department?
You bring as many people as you can. You deploy from every division. Every division has to send officers. So what they do, if they have 8 or 9 or 10 cars, they'll cut down to 2 or 3 or 4 cars. They'll reduce that deployment, which means you're going to be delayed.
Yeah, we're going to interrupt you here because we have Matthew Seedorf live on the ground with an update for us. Matthew.
Yeah, Christine, we're actually live right now with a demonstrator. He's a student here at USC.
Correct.
What brings you out here today for this?
Definitely the stand up with my brothers and sisters here with the protest. I'm also a part of the universities, and I know what's going on over there and in here. And I'm also Palestinian, so I know what's going on here and there, right? The reason why we're here because the messages we're trying to say is like, friends, our Americans, stuff like that, right? And I know they're really good people, right? And most of their tax money are going in drag about something cause they're not part of, you know? So that's why we stand here. It's just everybody has a body and soul. We are, as a human, cannot cross those things.
And you said you were prepared to be arrested. I see that you have this phone number written on your wrist here just in case you need some sort of legal advice if you were to be in jail. And you said that your professor is standing in this circle.
Correct. Marcus is right there. The guy with, he's my history professor, and he's there. Like, kind of want to go there, be with him right now, but obviously they got the line, so nothing we can do now. But I have footage of everything. That's why I care right now.
And what is it like to see this demonstration? Obviously, we're seeing it right now, but to be here and be a part of it.
So the part is like this, right? Most of what they do is to stop things from happening, right? Like, people going from to work, they close the streets, right? So imagine you as being comfortable as that, going to the school and not coming back, right? This is what we're stopping things on the street, right? So, maybe somebody come late to work because of closed the street, and where we live is if they close the street, you're dead. You're not coming back. So sorry to make you late. At least you're coming back home with life and safety, right? That's the concept that it should never happen, right? So, okay, it's not okay to happen here, and we agree, and we don't want to do it either, but how come that could happen? It's okay to happen for us over there. That's the whole takeaway from it.
Definitely a lot of passion here today, and people that are willing to be arrested. Correct. And this happening at USC, obviously it's a private campus. We are seeing those arrests for trespassing. What do you think about that?
It's very simple. Whether you convince God, you convince the people. People who are willing here to convince the people, they left. People who are convincing God, they have nothing to worry about. Simple as that. That's my takeaway from it.
All right, thank you so much. One last time, what's it like just looking at your professor out there?
Yeah, Marcus, he's right there with the green jacket. No, he's not there anymore.
As the crowd's chanting, let them go right now.
Let them go, right, let them go. Because like most of them are students. These people are not criminal. They're not criminal. They don't harm anyone, right? So it's just silly how it takes that much to take control and naturalize things. It looks like a bit of a drama, right? This is not a military base. This is an education field, right? Like grab them, talk to them, find a solution, or do something about it. But unfortunately, this is what's happening.
Thank you so much for speaking with us. We appreciate your time. The circle is closing in right now. Most of the people standing have been arrested, including his professor, as he was saying. Looks like I only see about 4 or 5 people standing, as now most of the demonstrators that are left are the ones that are kneeling and locking arms. And this is where things could get interesting. I don't know if they're going to be willing to get arrested as easily as those that were standing. We'll find out here shortly.
We've seen them sometimes carry a protester away. Watch on that. I'm wondering if Dennis Zine is still with us. So, Dennis, what do you make of these demonstrators that are still sitting there on the ground? Do you expect a little bit more resistance, per se, when it comes to them being arrested?
Well, they'll all submit. So far, everyone submitted peacefully. They're doing of their protests, and again, we haven't had protests like this in a number of years, but it's spreading across the country now. We know there's been on the East Coast some confrontation with law enforcement when the arrests have been made, but what we see now, the 40 Miller, those orange guns or 40 millimeters that they'll use to subdue if it gets violent. They don't want to use a lethal force, but that's less lethal force that they could use if it results to that. But it's a very peaceful crowd. I mean, the spectators, there's a number of spectators around. They don't want to be arrested. They'll disperse. What we find happening is a core group of people who are in the circle willing to be arrested. They've made arrangements for that. And the rest of those people around the circle, you see, they're there watching. It's a show for them to just watch and see. So the people who believe that it's willing to go to jail for the cause, those are the ones you see sitting down. Those are the ones that are going to be taken away. Those are the ones to be arrested. And the West will just disperse. This is not uncommon, as we've seen in past demonstrations. This is not a violent confrontation between the police and those that are not students that are on campus. But, you know, they decided there's not going to be a graduation. And if this continues, the administration, there won't be a graduation. They'll just hand out the diplomas. I mean, if this escalates to that degree and they plan to disrupt the graduation ceremony without the speakers, they may decide, you know what, we're not going to have a graduation. We'll mail you your diploma. So they're causing harm to themselves in the end because they're paying a lot of money to go to school, to get the education, to get a profession, go down the road. And they're putting this on the hands of SC. And SC is a conservative institution that really doesn't subscribe to this.
Yeah. We are about out of time here. We're going to sign off soon here at Fox 11 News, of course, keeping a watch on what's happening here at USC. And arrest after this occupation at USC like we've seen across the country. We'll have more news, of course, on Fox 11 News at 10 and, of course, on our website, foxla.com. You can continue to see this.
Yes, so Dennis Zine, we appreciate you. You were with us last night at 6 o'clock talking about resources with LAPD, and now we're seeing tonight that most of them, many of them, have descended upon the USC campus. Our coverage will continue online on foxla.com. The very latest tonight at 10 on the Fox 11 News at 10. We thank you so much with us, and our continuing coverage extra with Billy Bush starts right now.